arrange the chairs. Michael, would you like to pick up on anything that Steve just said before we start taking questions?
Well, yes. I mean, the obesity thing is a serious, serious problem. What do we do about it?
You're the head of nice stuff. I think it's a huge problem. I mean, as of course you know, I mean, the linear increase in obesity does seem to have flattened off in all children. So that's making somewhat of a difference. The great problem with obesity is that the extra fat is itself has endocrine properties. Yep. So once you become fat, it is very, very difficult indeed to lose it. You can lose it for a while, but you've sort of reset your what do you call it? We used to call it a ponderostat, which is a little thing in your brain that tells you how heavy it needs to be. And it's very hard to do. There's one remarkable system that actually works, which I recommend to everybody, which is only eat raw food. Now, if you only eat raw food, and I mean really raw food, I mean raw potatoes, raw meat, raw fish, as much as you like.
Raw horse meat?
Raw horse meat. Until you're blue in the face or green in the face, this will. You can eat as much as you like, and you will lose weight rapidly. You'll feel satiated, and you'll lose weight. And that's because we're the only animal which needs an external stomach, which is a big fat fryer or a frying pan or a microwave. We can't digest food. If you go on too far, you'll die. You'll starve to death. But that's really what we should do. We should ban the microwave.
Yeah, but I mean, from a population point of view, it's a serious problem. And I'm not sure we have much idea what to do about it. Do you think the calorie counts in Starbucks helps? Bloomberg made it compulsory in New York.
Well, I mean, so far everything was just. I don't know, but when I was everybody smoked. Yes, that's true of you. I went to a very ordinary grammar school in Liverpool. I would say 80% of my 16-year-old mates smoked. Now, the reasons I really never understood. I never started smoking. Why? It's attractive. But now, you can go to a first year genetics class and you can say, how many of you smoke? 2 or 3% of what they have. So you can win. But I think it's just a matter of bashing the message in again.
The thing is, guys like you and me, we're thick. And I don't think we could either of us could get that even if we try hard. I just get full up.
I'm not so sure of that. We're going up to dinner later.
Right, we'll take some questions. So, anyone? Yes.
I think Rawlins point is incredibly good because none of the methods seem to work. Now GPs are being instructed that they won't get paid unless they tell people to take more exercise, despite the fact that it's well known that exercising more doesn't make you thinner. And
nor does weighing you every year either. I mean, you get weighed up,
Yes. It's a real dilemma because there is no well-documented method of doing it with good evidence.
You'll be curious, it'll be interesting to genotype people for FTR, which would get easy to do in a minute, and see if there's a difference in the behaviour. I'm surprised I haven't picked up anybody's done that.
There's eugenics.
Well, no, I mean, if you turn out to be at high risk, whether you get
You sterilise them.
Of course, the fecundity of obese people is much lower. Not only because perhaps they find it slightly harder to find a mate, but because their sperm count drops.
It's also a source of division. Fat people marry or make the fat people.
As I point out to my students when I'm talking about that sort of mating, the best predictor in physical terms of who you will marry is actually collar size. Okay, so next time you're on the disco floor, politely but firmly put your hands around the neck. Why is that such a good predictor? It's because it conflates height and weight. Okay, in other words, if you're both tall and fat, you can have a big collar. Mine is size 15.5. So
Looking around the room.
We got another question. Yes.
I wonder if, it's interesting, some inside medicine and some outside medicine. We're looking inside and outside medicine, the two of you looking at very often the same sort of material, but rather different perspective. I wonder how you could see this in terms of personalised medicine, whether you feel this is a doomed enterprise. Because from what you said, I mean, Steve, clearly, at the extremes, obviously, where genetic influences are profound and enormous and overwhelming, then it's quite clear that the insights that can have a bear directly on treatment. But what about the range of common diseases in the middle, where it's presumably not one or two, but maybe 10 or 20 genes that influence? So this is really where, if medicine is going to make personalised medicine mean anything, it has to have an effect. It sounds from what you're saying as if you don't really think it will.
I'm not quite as pessimistic as that. I mean, I think where genetics has really is becoming important is not in treatment particularly, apart from the pharmacogenetic stuff which is some, but in diagnosis. So you could diagnose people higher risk of coronary, some people have higher risk of coronary heart disease, some people have higher risk of diabetes, long before they show the signs. And although it's very early days indeed, when it comes to cancer, cancer of course is basically a genetic disease in the body itself, and it's very, very complicated, the cascade of mutations. But there are some cases now where you can pick up the beginnings of this cascade before any signs of the tumour are manifest. And by the time the signs of cancer manifest, it's often too late to treat. So there is much hope there. But there's, I have to say as a health warden, that there's been much hope in all the other things. But the fact that you can sequence within the next 2 years, you really sequence the DNA sequence within an hour or two, you could follow different metastasized cancers, let's say. You could see the lump here, this one's got a really nasty mutation, right? That's the code for that. I had a lump over here, which is actually rather benign. So it would be, I think it'd be useful for that. But again, that hasn't happened yet. We'll have to see.
So another question, I think, just there, Mandy, there.
So actually work in the area of social cancers where there's a lot of interest in molecular medicine and identifying mutations. But this is actually a question from Rawlins, which is that how do you convince drug companies to follow your adaptive licensing approach to clinical trials when they're so reluctant to let their drugs go into the open, and especially when they're prepared, such as Novartis recently, to give their CEO a £70 million bonus, I think they did.
Well, he has to get it back, didn't he? Daniel Vasella at Novartis, who was offered 70 million. I don't know what to do with 70 million. My kids probably wouldn't. But I mean, there's been talk about it. I mean, there's quite a bit of piloting out here. I mean, for example, in one case, it's been thought of piloting it for the treatment of Duchenne muscular dystrophy, where the phase 2 study showed promise. Stop doing any more randomized control trials, give it to the lot, and see whether the initial promise really fulfills itself in terms of, walking and that sort of stuff. I mean, so start small, but move along. We've got to stop doing this, linear approach that we've been doing for 50 years. I also have a lecture why I hate statisticians, and statisticians haven't done much in randomized trials over the last 50 years. They've just fiddled around with a little bit more complicated mathematics, but I mean, it's still the same paradigm. It really hasn't changed since the Bradford deal.
I think another question is just that gentleman just there, yes.
Something for you to think about, not to comment. I live in rural West Devon. I grew up in Devon. And large ladies were common. The area I live in has become very popular, particularly in my village. And there are a lot of slim people. There are in Tavistock as well. But if you go into Tavistock on Friday, which is market day, people coming from the surrounding countryside, the large people appear. Genes, environment.
I'm coming from a different angle, sitting here in Enfield, and I'm very, very concerned about the rising costs of our public sector. Our public sector, nationally, locally, regionally. What are the prospects of medical research being directed into 2 areas? One, preventive medicine. 2, veracity of autoimmune boosters. They are quite illicit on the diagnostic market. They do not make bad situations worse, they do not kill anyone, but nobody has actually done any research about their efficacy, their veracity.
About the
autoimmune boosters.
autoimmune.
Well, there is quite a lot of research on autoimmune disease, of course. And actually rather odd. It has to do with testosterone. Males, men, have a much less efficient and effective immune system than women do. And that's because testosterone suppresses the immune system. Now, we kind of know why that is. That's another story. And what that means is that autoimmune disease tends to be, things like multiple sclerosis, tend to be more common in women because their immune system is more powerful, so if it turns upon themselves, it does more damage. And that's what research is done on that. I'm not a doctor, so I don't quite know what's happening on the clinical side. I'm not aware. But I think you're wrong to say that there's no interest in preventative medicine. I mean, I think that is absolutely not true. I mean, the problem really is, what do I know? Nothing. The problem is moving from the hubris of the bench scientists to the clinical practice. Okay? That's where the big gap is. Now, Nick Wharton and I are on a thing called the UK Stem Cell Foundation, which has generated quite a lot of money. And the idea is to move from the extraordinary cell biology, which is going on, which is breathtaking what they could do, to the clinic. And it is proved, I would say, so far impossible, more or less. It is very, very difficult. Partly because it is very difficult to do, and partly because there's a very different mindset of scientists and clinicians. We talk past each other. I think clinicians are much more interested in preventative medicine than scientists are, but there's no reason why there shouldn't be a science for preventative medicine. At UCL, Michael Marmot, he is very much concerned with it, and has come up with many startling statistics as to the difference in health outcomes of people under stress in the civil service versus those who give the orders. Huge differences. And there are attempts to reduce those stress levels. Probably not doing particularly well, but people are trying.
Mike, have you got anything to add on?
No, not really. No, I agree with it.
Any XX chromosomes? Any non-Y chromosomes?
The trouble is that preventative medicine is a very good idea, but by and large people don't know how to prevent things.
Well, we know a lot more than politics, because a lot of it is changing behaviour, and a lot of it is to do with reducing alcohol consumption. And today, the one thing we know about alcohol consumption is highly prices. The one thing we know, make it less expensive for you people. And today, the Prime Minister seems to be going away from the idea of unit pricing. Terrible shame.
I've waited 50 years to ask a question about snail genetics. Today's the day. I seem to remember, I don't always remember things correctly, that in snails, some snails twist to the left and some twist to the right. And if I remember correctly, which is possible, this depends not on their genes, but on their parents' genes.
That's a remarkable act of memory, that was the first example of cytoplasmic inheritance. So that your mother's cytoplasm, your mother's cells, their mitochondria actually, alter the way in which you twist. And that was done by Fisher and Diver in 1938. And it was regarded as completely absurd. But now we know there's a whole industry of the way in which mothers, human mothers included, influence their offspring by virtue of what passes not through the nucleus, but through the cytoplasm. There's a remarkable piece of work that I know the other day. Another ad for UCL, somebody who works on brain science. And it turns out, and I'd never really known this, that if you do all this incredible imagery of thinking brains, not molecular technology and human stuff, but in animals, it turns out lots of animals have got strong lateralization of particular functions on the left and particular functions on the right. Actually, often it's quite variable between one view and the next. And there's a snake which always hunts with its right eye. With its right eye. And it eats snails which are to the right. So every time it goes off, it gets their body, it pulls it down. But there was a mutation that made some of the snails cold to the left. And since the mutation appeared, these snails have greatly increased in frequency because the snake bites their shell and breaks its teeth very well. So there, not many people know that.
You've waited 50 years, Shelley. You have a snail question while you're here.
I remembered them afterwards.
I'll take that. Oh, should we do any further? Sorry? I was just going to say, if we've got another question, then I'll come back to you. Question? Okay, yes.
Yeah, I was just interested by the fact that we're only developing medicines for the top billion of us, which seems to be, of all the bad things that's happening in the world, about as bad as it gets, and I wondered how we're going to change that.
Yes, I mean, if we're going to change it, then the richer countries are going to have to pay more for the medicines, and the poorer countries have it more cheap. But I mean, that's the principle I think that we have to adopt. The problem, one of the big problems is you get diversion. So you sell it cheaply in poor countries, and then the wholesalers there will re-export it back into the rich countries. So we need to get around that. It's a soluble problem. That's the real problem about that.
Michael, your proposal to change the way that we trial medicines is radical, but actually long overdue. The whole process has become utterly sclerotic. And I wonder if you are not in as good a position as anyone on earth actually to start moving this. NICE is hugely influential. It's admired throughout the world. Before you formally step down, is this not a flag you can plant?
Well, I've only got 2 weeks to go. My successor just sitting behind you. Actually, there is quite a lot of interest in this. There's quite a lot of interest in the pharmaceutical industry. There's quite a lot of political interest too, because people recognise we can't just go on as we are. The regulatory authorities have been a bit reluctant because they're stuck in the paradigm, but even they're being bullied to come into line. So there are real plans afoot to try and do it on a few pilots to see how we get on. But we've got to get away from this ridiculous arrangement we currently have.
Yes, got another question up there.
I'm not sure if it's a genetic question, but I wonder about whether you think there's an issue with this XY chromosome difference about the love of machines that go ping. I've just spent the day working for NICE looking at cardiotocography in birth and the appalling evidence that we've got for these machines that go ping that we cannot wean ourselves from because we're so addicted. And I just wonder, seeing how people love smartphones and how incredibly clever they are, they're built by humans, they're just phones, but there's something about the magic machines. And you made a claim about electronic patient records, and personalised medicine is other fantasy, magic that's going to come. Can I just ask, is there any evidence that electronic records have improved care and that machines that go ping work?
Well, machines, first of all, machines. I mean, there is evidence from randomized controlled trials, for example, that text messaging improves, for people who try to stop smoking, text messaging produces an increase in the script rate. I mean, Ian Roberts of the National Hygiene demonstrated this about a year ago. So those sort of tweaking things, they might work better in boys than girls. I'm very struck by the boys are wired differently from girls. I had 3 daughters, 5 granddaughters, and then I had a little grandson, and his mother gave him Volkswagen Renaissance man, gave him a doll's house. By the evening, it was a garage. and there are these sort of, genetic sex differences, whether it's genetic or but there are sex differences.
I mean, if you look at the IQ test, and interestingly enough, I underwent a genetic test for IQ in 1955. That was the 11 plus exam. And that's what that was. It was about the belief that there were genes out there for kids who were smart, came from not particularly well-off household, and if you could find them, you could give them special treatment. The idea was absurd. But IQ tests, the IQ tests are IQ testing, measure IQ, but they've got various attributes to them, some of which are spatial, take this peculiar shape and move it around, which one does it match? Some of which are verbal, A is to B, a C is to D, okay? And there's a strong effect that males do better on the spatial test, females do better on the verbal test. Now, people, I'm always hissed. I used to be hissed by students for saying that because it was sexist. But it's not sexist, it's true. Why it is, I'm not sure that we know, but I think it's a real sex-limited.
You want another point?
It's all about whether there's this dream of the personalised
Well, we've been doing personalised medicine, not we actually. We've been testing antimicrobial sensitivity, we've been adjusting the dose of digoxin by renal function. I just regard it an extension of that sort of... Well, the electronic medical record, I think we'll only really get there if we have three things. We have electronic medical record, we have real-time decision support for the individual patient based on the relevant NICE guidelines, and we have your whole genome. Now, the reason why you need your whole genome is if we want to take advantage of some of the pharmacogenetic things that have been found, you can't test for the Leiden factor for people going on the pill just simply. I mean, it's just completely cost ineffective. But if you have your whole genome there and it flags up and tells you it's got a Leiden factor or the HLA, whatever it is, that's the way of the future, isn't it?
I think it's possible.
Francis Collins agrees with me.
I don't agree with him.
Yes, there we are.
One other question on that.
Could we just go back to a top-down potential issue? On the trials front, it's really a question, it's just a comment. I'm greying here in there, but it's taken me 9 months as a fairly senior academic in this institution.
Sorry, 9 months?
9 months as a fairly senior academic in this institution, having got money to get a study, a trial underway in this place.
You're very quick.
Oh,
the average cancer research UK was 621 days.
Well, absolutely. And it's, I just wanted to draw the audience and your attention again, I know you know about it, to the extraordinary spawning of sclerosis that Nick referred to. In order to move urine from King's College Hospital to Guy's and St Thomas's, which are all part of King's College, I have to have not only a Human Tissue Act memorandum of transfer or something, but I have to have a contract between King's College Hospital and here. It's unbelievable. And that stopped anything happening at King's College for last. So anything, as for young people being prepared to research fellow, my research fellow just, say, I'm sorry, I'm not doing an intervention study.
We've been ridiculously hard for people to do clinical research, and there are 3 broad reasons. One is the European Clinical Trials Directive, which is absurd. The second is not just the National Research Industry, I mean, that actually works better than most of it, but there are all sorts of other ethics approved, like you've got the Tissue Authority, one thing called RSAC, and so on and so forth. And then the worst bit is the governance arrangements, where each trust insists on doing all the investigations for the investigator. I met somebody when I was doing this review of the Academy of Sciences who had 62 CRB checks for one study from 62 different trusts. It's ridiculous.
The top-down bit might be, as Nick and others hinted, in your last 2 weeks or your later influence, if you're lucky, is to have a go at the Department of Health, who they say are responsible for all this stuff. I don't know how we do it, but if we don't do it, we're going home and not coming back to work.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with it. Actually, I was talking to the select committee this morning, the second of the Saturday morning, talking about just this whole problem. European Clinical Trials Directive, a complete disaster.
But it's better now. It's supposed to be run, but Britain's running it in parallel with the new amendment. Anyway, this is a specific subject. But top down.
Well, I think we're going to have to end there. We've run 25 minutes over already. I thank Professor McCutcheon for hosting this, Mike Rawlins, Steve Jones and Nick Ross. There is information, newsletters for HealthWatch just down there, so do have a look if you haven't picked one up already. And thank you to all the speakers and